There's AI everywhere, but the guest with me here on the panel who's been here, perhaps amongst the first who arrived, well before time, thank you very much for that, Minister, comes from Ontario, one of the largest provinces in Canada, contributing close to 38% of the country's GDP. And I don't know how many of you know here, but Ontario is also considered the birthplace of AI. So, Minister, I just want you to first tell our audience here, why is it called the birthplace of AI?
Well, thank you very much, Siddharth. First, I want to say thanks to Kali for the invitation here today and to be able to represent a little slice of Canada. Toronto, Ontario, Canada is widely considered the birthplace of AI. Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, who won his Nobel Prize just last year in machine learning, he began working with machine learning and AI decades ago. So it's basically older news for us. But once we saw the power of it, we began something called the Vector Institute, which has 800 researchers employed in Toronto. We continue to put out students every year. We graduate about 1,100 AI masters. This year we have 1,700 AI masters enrolled. We saw about 17,000 new AI employees just last year alone. So it's still a field that's growing and growing greatly in Toronto and throughout Ontario.
Minister, policymakers in India who might hear you here would perhaps want to ask you the question, is therefore education the way for a country like India and states within India, which are very large in population terms and GDP as well, to catch up in the world of AI? Because the age of AI has opportunity and challenges. So for India, is educating its undergrads, graduates and masters, students in AI, one of the ways to go about to catch up?
Well, absolutely. In Ontario, we have about 1,600 AI firms all grasping for these graduates. We put out in Ontario, to put it in perspective, just to give an idea of the scale and scope, Ontario is the largest province in Canada, but still only has 15 million people. That's your largest province in Canada. As vast and as wide and as long as it takes to get from days to get from end to end, it still is only 15 million people. But we graduate 86,000 STEM grads every single year. We just put $750 million in our budget permanently now to graduate a further 20,500 annually. So in a small country like Canada with 35 or so million people, we in Ontario will be graduating over 110,000 STEM grads every year. So we have a steady stream of these graduates. So if companies are looking for them and can't find them in India, you can always find them in Ontario.
Well, Minister, there is one of the senior most policymakers from the state of Telangana who is here in the audience and listening to you, and I'm sure that state, which has produced thousands and literally tens of thousands of STEM graduates over the past decades, will perhaps be listening to this advice very, very closely. And there are a bunch of students here and those who are watching us currently on all our property. I want you to now reflect upon the age of AI from a policymaker's perspective, from a minister's perspective. In terms of the evolution of AI, geopolitics has also crept into it pretty much from the first day, whether it is supply chains, whether it is the availability of chips and access to the latest technology. Is there an opportunity for India and Canada to work more closely when it comes to AI?
I think there's an opportunity for India, Canada, and all countries to be able to work together. In Ontario, we've developed several papers over the last few years preparing us to help prepare our own government on how to use AI, if we should be using AI, when we use AI, why we use it, and then talk to our public about it. So all of these papers that we've written have come to a conclusion in final legislation, government legislation, and it compels us to do a couple of things. One is to talk to our constituents and describe to them when we're using AI. We want our people to know when, why we're using it, and how it's helping. So that's a very important pillar of our own AI policy as a government. The second part of that pillar is to make sure our public understands, it's a little tough to say, the risks of AI,
Yeah.
or some of the things they need to be aware of. We want them to know what these pitfalls in AI are, and then we want them to know what we're doing about mitigating those. Whether it's through our cybersecurity programs or just our transparency. So I think those are lessons that can be shared with any country in the world as we all grapple to come up with policies on the ethical use of AI from a government perspective.
Minister, what about one of the pitfalls that bothers a lot of people in India, given our population, the size and aspirations of a growing economy? This is with regard to employment. India's IT sector is one of the largest employers. It seems to be a bit under the weather when it, with the risks of AI, particularly on coding and job growth. Do you kind of share that feeling that one of the pitfalls could be on the employment front?
Well, this is a very popular discussion. I think I'm going to answer it in a couple of different ways if I have a minute to do
Absolutely.
that. So first of all, the same way everybody thinks about it, you've got AI replacing the worker. So that's a common thinking. We look at it in Ontario as we are now with 450,000 tech workers. We're the second largest tech cluster in all of North America. With the 17,000 AI workers we added last year, we have tens of thousands of workers just in AI. But then look at what we've done with AI. So it is now in virtually every sector. I'm going to give you two examples. One that is worrisome and one that is really progressive. So the worrisome one would be our small and medium enterprises. What is going to happen? I think about the company. It's a notional company, but I think I know where they are in Ontario. And they make those vehicles that scrub the floors, and the person walks along behind it and pushes it along. That company would probably have been in business 70, 100 years, making those floor cleaners, thinking this is a lovely business. What's AI ever going to do to me? Two kids come out of University of Waterloo. They have a little autonomous vehicle, and they think, hey, it doesn't have to be just a little delivery vehicle. We could put rotors on the bottom and make a cleaning vehicle. They're now in 350 Walmarts, is this
Wow.
autonomous cleaning vehicle. And I think that guy is scratching his head, who owned the company for 50 years, and thinking, wow, these guys are going to eat my lunch. And so that's the thing that I think, if you're worried about losing jobs to AI, then you better get with the program. I think we heard a discussion earlier, lean into it and begin thinking, my company is not oblivious to what could happen. If two kids out of Waterloo can come and make a startup company and make a cleaning machine that does a better job, autonomous, and works all day around the customers and all night with no customers. So that's really one side of it. The other side of it, I have just another moment. In the mining sector, I live in northern Ontario. We're surrounded by nickel mines and gold mines and lithium mines, all the things, by the way, other than gold, that you need to make a lithium-ion battery. It's very exciting, but we've now got AI configured drones that, after a planned explosion deep inside a mine, where you would need days to literally let the dust settle, send men and women in with hazmat suits, detectors of all sorts. Now the blast can occur, a drone can be sent in, AI-guided drone on a pre-programmed path can go in with a sniffer, and detect any issues with thermal vision to see if there's any fissures created, and come back out and give a report 1,000 times better, and made the mine safer. So
and more productive.
And now it's more productive because you're not down for all those days. So I look at the good side of
So
AI.
this is a very important point. One of the objectives of the ongoing main AI summit here is a discussion towards having a AI commons, a kind of regulatory sort of framework. I have seen in my reporting career various phases in technology. Technology comes first. Nation states and regulators then say, oh, it perhaps needs to be regulated because there are multiple concerns. As a policymaker yourself, do you feel the need to regulate AI in any way, or should you just let innovation and innovators and entrepreneurs keep pushing the envelope?
Well, look, I can think of when I first, I sat in opposition for many years. When we got into government, I looked at my office and it was surrounded, and this is only 2018, with fax machines and telephones, desk phones, and speaker phones. We just went in, literally cleared everything out and said, like, we've got to at least modernize. But it's still amazing. We're in government, and yet it's very hard to actually regulate these kinds of things. A doctor's office in Ontario still has a fax machine. You can't accept something by email, it must be by fax. And I'm thinking, they go through the same digital space to get there. One is printed in a machine, and one is printed in a different machine.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to comprehend, even as somebody who chairs our cabinet, that we can't get these things done. So regulation, there are areas of importance, and I think I've described them earlier, where I think it's important that we tell our people what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it, so that they're in eyes wide open, and we have a better sort of a social license to do the things that we're doing. I think those are more important.
Can I follow up that by asking you about data privacy? The very nature of the AI world is you suck up vast amounts of data, you train your model, and that data can come from everywhere. So the media industry is talking to these engines that you got to pay us, but those are different debates. In terms of data privacy and the way a LLM can use data, do you think at least that needs some early action in terms of protecting privacy?
I absolutely do. I can tell you, I won't use their name or their company name, but we had everybody in this room would know this person's name, and this person's company came and sat with our office. In the province of Ontario, think about it, we're a nice little square of data, 16 million people. We have 120 countries of people who are in Ontario. We are the melting pot of all melting pots. 200 languages spoken in downtown Toronto, just to give you a flavor of what Ontario is. They asked, because our health data would be so rich, they asked, can we get our hands on your data? Well, the answer is no. We don't have a social license. We're not prepared to monetize that, even though that would be anonymized. We're not ready for that. Now, I learned something really interesting yesterday, which is why I love coming to conferences such as these, that instead of name and address and all these things, they used a retinal scan, and that was the complete ID for the people involved in a clinical trial. So there's no name, no address, no social insurance number.
We use it at our airports all the time.
Yes, yeah. But I found that to be amazing. So there's some ways that we may be able to work with this, but there's no social license, I can say, at least in Ontario, to have your health data shared, even though the argument would be it's going to save lives. But we've got companies, Ontario startups like Deep Genomics AI,
right,
who now identify drugs in 18 months instead of 6 years using AI. So there's still work being done, don't get me wrong, but the bigger picture, the bigger debate, I don't think we're ready for that yet.
Minister, you started by thanking Kali Puri, and she's right here, the Vice Chairperson of the India Today Group. She has a question for you.
Be nice, because I thanked you right at the beginning. I don't know if you were in the room at the
I'm
beginning.
media. There's no such thing as nice. Welcome, Minister. I wanted to take up on a point that you mentioned earlier about a bunch of startups starting on cleaning devices, and that takes away sort of the work that was being done by humans, which is great. You don't want that kind of monotonous or dangerous or risky work being done by humans. But what about the fact that some unskilled workers can only do that? So we have then taken away their jobs, and what do we do with their unemployment? Do we then provide them basic income, or how do we protect unskilled workers in some of the AI innovation that's coming in?
I think that is the question that people are asking. In Ontario, we have tremendous retraining programs. We've put in things like to develop skills in Ontario. We have, I think it's getting closer to $3 billion Canadian into these programs. So for instance, I live in a very small town, especially by India's standards. I live in an incredibly small town. But we have a college and a university, 7,000 students. The town is like 55,000 people, but 7,000 students. We have free education for nursing, for paramedics, the people who drive your ambulances and attend to you. We now have free tuition and books for medical technologists, carpenters, electricians, police officers. So we're paying to upscale a workforce. I'm going to give a plug for Ontario. When we got elected, we reduced costs, we reduced taxes. Today, the cost of our taxes and our cost of doing business is $12 billion lower than the first day we were in office. And that business environment has created 1 million new jobs in Ontario, 1 million new jobs. So all of this training, so we have all of this training required for the people that we need to fill those 1 million jobs that have been created.
Minister, as we close our conversation, I want to go back to that point where you spoke about the kind of minds that you have, not just gold, but for the AI era. Do you see any opportunities that exist? Because in India, one of our concerns is to improve our supply chains with regard to AI. So at one end, the government's mission is working on acquiring more GPUs, but we need raw materials. Any possibilities there that exist? And are you in conversation with the government here in any way?
Yes, yes, and yes. In Ontario, again, we have mines. Put the gold mines aside for a second, because we're talking the critical minerals now. Although at gold, at whatever it is, $5,000 an ounce, we have many, I think...
May I interrupt you here? When it comes to gold, I think that's the most critical mineral that Indians love, but please continue your answer.
Yeah, I think we have 10 new mines opening in the very near future because of the price of gold. But the critical minerals, cobalt, nickel, lithium, all of these are in abundance in Ontario. So yes, we need capital. So we're talking to capital markets about investing in our nickel mines. There's a new one about to start. It will be arguably the second largest nickel mine, it's certainly the second largest nickel bed in the world. So we're looking for capital. We're talking to companies always all around the world. But we want to take the minerals out of the ground and process them. So when Kali talked about the people, think about the thousands, the tens of thousands of people who are actually needed to process that. That we have set up a $500 million critical mineral processing fund. We may not have all of the expertise in Ontario to process lithium. We've never done it before, and it's very complicated. So we have Mitsubishi from Japan coming over to join at, I think, a 25% take of one of the lithium companies to help process. India, companies in India certainly are able to come to Ontario, participate from a capital perspective and from an equity perspective and from an actual facilitation perspective, an operation perspective in processing of cobalt or processing of lithium. And then those minerals are for sale. We want the value added in Ontario and then take them away if you've got things.
One very final question. You know, there was a bit of issue between India and Canada, more than a bit perhaps, but we seem to have kind of moved on from there. What's the future for India-Canada ties? I know you can't speak on behalf of the federal government, but as a leading policymaker and politician in the country, what's the future of India-Canada ties looking like to you?
I think it's very strong. First of all, during any geopolitical challenges that our federal governments may have had in the past, Ontario, my office, we're here every year, a couple of times a year, year after year after year. And during those challenges, we were asked by the media about that, and we just said, look, our governments, our federal governments will figure that out. We're here from the province of Ontario to tell you the business fundamentals have not changed between us, so let's just take our jackets off, roll our sleeves up, and get to work. So that's what we were able to do. I think I would say, flat out, India is a reliable partner to Ontario and to Canada, full stop.
Well, it is full stop on the time for this session, but before I let you go, those wonderful shoes that you are wearing, I mean, AI is never going to come for that, right?
These are made in Canada.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for taking out time and being with us here for this session today.
Thank you. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fedeli and Siddharth Zarabi.